Okay, we're going to get into some of the myths of COVID-19, of the vaccine. So I think we have like 10, the top 10 myths of COVID-19. First one is that the vaccine isn't safe because it was developed and tested too quickly.
Well, I mean, I guess that would be the top ones. I hear that often. And the truth of it is, though, is that it's been developed over the last 20 plus years or so. The first time we had, it may have been the second time we had an outbreak. It was I think the SARS virus. Um, it was from that time, 20 years ago, that scientists have been studying and working to develop a treatment or a preventative strategy for this type of virus. Um, so they, have been working on this technology for 20 years. Um, and so they had the technology available to create a vaccine when the COVID-19 pandemic started. Um, and then the scientists in China um, got the genetic structure of the virus fairly quickly, um, and released that information to the rest of the world, so that the other scientists in the world could then take the information and then use that to develop the COVID-19 vaccine that we know of as Moderna and Pfizer, um, which so that's the one that people tend to think of was developed, too quickly. And then the Johnson and Johnson used the same technology, but it was just developed a little bit differently than those others. So when we think about it in the grander scheme of things, it was not a quick development at all. It actually took about 20 years to get to a point where we were able to actually execute the technology and the science that came along with kind of the learning about that type of virus itself. And sometimes we often forget that a coronavirus in and of itself is a common virus. And it generally is one that causes a common cold. It's just that the COVID-19 version of the coronavirus is much more aggressive, much more impactful than the common cold. And and it is true that it was tested much quicker. I wouldn't say it was tested quicker because it was actually tested on the same or similar timeline as other vaccines. It's just that the steps in between that you would have had to go through some jump through some hoops, that red tape I mentioned being cut earlier by the federal government. They removed all the barriers of, jumping from, one governmental office to another governmental office and waiting months and months for people to review things. They just made sure that everyone was available and eager to look at the data, look at the information so they could really kind of streamline the process. So what would have taken a year or more to approve things would take a week, because people were focused and really didn't want to be in the way of progress, but still want to make sure that they were being as diligent about reviewing the data and what they were seeing in the studies, to make sure there was no kind of issue with what they were doing. So taking their time to be methodical and making sure that they were kind of doing their jobs the way they needed to be done. And so, yes, it was quick, but it was quick because all the barriers were removed. So we were actually able to if there weren't as many barriers in life for us to do things, everything would be easy to do. But oftentimes there are things put up, not by us, that keep us from being able to kind of have a smooth experience and kind of get things done, not just in our lives, but in the community more broadly.